Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope you had a great weekend, and we are looking forward to quite a number of really good interviews today. But this first hour really gives us a chance to talk about something happening in the Dallas area that I think you need to know about. If you live in the Dallas area, and I say Bachman Lake, you know exactly what we're talking about. And if you aren't in this area and you've at least heard of Love Field or something, you're in the same general area. And we're going to be talking about this wonderful ministry, Casa Del Lago. And first of all, we want to go around the roundtable and introduce our various guests. First of all, Josh Geiger has really deep roots in that community, having worked as a church planter and pastor of Crystal Ray Presbyterian Church for a number of years, and he is an individual that is in studio with us today to kind of share some of the vision. So, Josh, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you, Kerby. It's great to be here. Really thankful to be here.
And it is just great to have you here. Also, Betsy Araujo, I think.
Araujo?
Yeah, very good. And I'll keep working on that. Is a native of Monterrey, Mexico, and has lived in Dallas for the last 15 years and actually works with some of those individuals learning English as a second language, ESL, also community development and childhood development. And so, Betsy, it's just great to have you in studio as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, Josh, we got to give people a vision for just a few minutes. Tell us a little bit more about this Bachman Lake community. As you go to the website, it does give you some great facts and figures and statistics. But one of the things I found really interesting is this is an unreached community, which I think provides some real opportunities for many of our listeners in various churches to come and help you out. So talk about what's going on down there.
Yes, Bachman Lake community is, as you said, Kerby, it's the area really just north of Love Field, starting at Bachman Lake up to Walnut Hill Lane, and on the east side, it's bordered by Marsh Lane, and on the west side by Harry Hines. It's home to about 80,000 people. Many of those people were born and raised in other countries. About 79% of the families living in that neighborhood speak Spanish.
Yes.
And it's a lower income neighborhood. There's the average family income is below $30,000 a year per family. And it's one of the densest neighborhoods in terms of population density in the city of Dallas. If you've driven through it, you'll see lots of apartment complexes, mostly lower-income apartment complexes. And I think one statistic that's really important, that's very central to what we do at Casa, is that according to the last census, the Bachman Lake community is home to the largest number of children ages 0 to 5 of any neighborhood in the city of Dallas.
Isn't that something? And
yes.
That's going to get to what we're going to talk about with Betsy in just a minute.
That's right.
But, just even to give you a sense of that, one of the studios we were in, and we're in the studio now, we're going to be here for 10 years. But one of the studios was in that area. And I said when we started going in and out and eating at some of the restaurants, I wish I'd paid a little more attention to my Spanish class when I was in high school, because it really is a very Hispanic community. And as you point out, it's one that sometimes gets missed. I sat on the board of a group that deals with West Dallas, and sometimes we've given a lot of attention there. We've had people on this program that have talked of Bon Ton and some of that. But we're now introducing them to another great opportunity for ministry, aren't we?
We are. I mean, it's exciting. I think in the last few years, there's an increasing amount of attention given to Bachman Lake community. We're really excited about that. Buckner International is building a facility there, and partner with an organization called Bachman Lake Together, which is very focused on early childhood education. So in the last few years, there's been an increasing amount happen there. But yes, for a long time, I think it was very underserved.
Yes. Betsy, let me come to you for just a minute. The largest percentage of young people in the Dallas area, and you would like to believe that they're all school ready, but as I go to your website, I recognize that they're not. So talk about some of the challenges they're facing.
Yeah. Well, we are very pleased and thankful that we're able to serve right now to 35 children. And it's incredible that we have noticed, even when we have kids that start with us and they're 2.5-year-old, you will think that they have been exposed to use crayons or play with Play-Doh, but they haven't. And
Wow.
When we introduce them to Play-Doh or crayons, we realize that even their fingers are not that strong because they haven't been. Most of the time they're exposed or they're sitting in front of a TV.
Wow.
So working with them, it's really rewarding. We're really thankful because we just don't only work with them, but along with the moms, helping them, guiding them, giving them tips what to do at home, how to do it with things that they already have. And so it's been a blessing, and you can tell, it's very rewarding. They learn so fast, and we're really thankful that we're able to help them.
One of the things I want to talk about is ESL.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this on this program before. Some of my colleagues work quite a bit in English as a second language, and the biggest difficulty they have is trying to convince some of our other listeners that they could actually teach that. So, well, I don't have an English degree. So, no, you have no understanding. What you take for granted in terms of being able to communicate English is something that would be such a blessing and a help to individuals who really want to learn English and be part and assimilate to part of the American experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. And that's, what we do with the moms. So the moms come there and they take their ESL classes while we're teaching their children. And, we need volunteers for that to come and teach English. So the desire, the love to come and teach. And we are very blessed to see this community there's a lot of need and hungry to learn. So it's very rewarding. We're very thankful for that.
We'll talk about for just a minute, because some of our listeners might say, well, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm always trying to say, no, you can. If you know how to speak English right now, you can. So what is required of an individual that might say, okay, I can probably give you some time, or my Sunday school class could come down and maybe we could teach ESL, or we could help take care of the kids while someone else is doing that. What are some possibilities, Josh?
Well, we have offer ESL classes at 5 different points during the week, Monday and Wednesday nights, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning. We ask each teacher to commit to a 2-hour-a-week teaching segment.
Right.
So you don't have to show up 5 times a week or 3 times a week. We just need you to come once. Really, the people that we are looking for are people who love Christ and want to show the love of Christ to others, and who can speak English pretty well. That really is the qualification for teaching with us. We've got a great curriculum that we use, and we provide some teacher training so that if you've never taught before, or it seems a little apprehensive. I know I was a little apprehensive the first time I taught ESL, but we've got a great curriculum. We'll train you. We have learning communities with our teachers so that you'll be probably paired up with some experienced teachers and have the opportunity to talk to them. So if you have any interest in that, you can visit our website, or you can contact me. I can give a phone number here, and we'd love to talk with you about that.
Well, again, we have a link to the website. It's Casa Del Lago, and if you don't know how to spell that, we have the link there, so it's very simple. Yes. And my joke that I use every once in a while is, well, if you've never taught ESL, well, most of the students have never been taught ESL, so we'll match you up and work just fine.
That's right.
They have no expectations whatsoever and are grateful that you showed up there with a willingness to teach and a willingness to speak. So let's take a break. When we come back, we have a lot more to cover. And I want to hear a few stories about things that are happening there and what churches can do to partner with you, because this is another great opportunity right here in the Dallas area. And so if you would like to do so, you can go to the website. If you'd like to ask a question, of course, you can give us a call, 1-800-351-1212. Also broadcasting on Facebook Live. If you'd like to leave a note there, we'll read those off as well. All that coming up right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
One thing the government shutdown has done is to remind us how big government is today and how many government employees there are. When just a quarter of the government shuts down and thousands of non-essential employees are sent home, you realize how large the federal government has grown. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Senator Jim DeMint about his book that warned how the bigs were taking away our liberty. Those would be big government, big business, and big labor. Let's look at the federal government. The federal budget last year was $4 trillion. The president and Congress are supposed to manage a bureaucracy with more than 4.8 million employees if you count military, civilian, and contract employees. No one in history has ever managed such a large organization. Yes, the current president has managed a large company, but it pales in comparison to these numbers. And remember that the previous president had really never managed anything and whose previous experience was as a junior senator. To put this in comparison, let's look at the two largest companies in the Fortune 500. Walmart employs 2.1 million people worldwide, and about 1.4 million of them are in the United States. Its annual revenue is $482 billion. Amazon employs just 500,000 people worldwide with annual revenue about $177 billion. If Walmart or Amazon were part of the federal government, they wouldn't even be the largest federal programs. Perhaps the difference in scale between the federal government and the major U.S. corporations helps illustrate why so many people believe it is too big and too inefficient. When we see non-essential federal employees sent home, you can't blame some of us for wondering whether some of them should stay home permanently. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kerby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Back once again talking about this great ministry there in the Bachman Lake area called Casa Del Lago. And we have Josh and Betsy in studio. And Josh, let's talk for just a few minutes about how people can connect up. They might say, I didn't even know there was such a thing. Is there a way I can get a tour? Is there a way I can kind of get my feet wet before I commit to all of a sudden one of the programs that you might want me to be involved with?
Yes, we love to host people in our facility. We're literally across the street from Bachman Lake. You can see the lake from the front of our facility. Okay. And one of the things we do regularly is host what we call a taco tour, but it's an introduction to the ministry and a tour of the facility. And we'll be doing another one of those. I believe our next one's going to be on the evening of February 4th. That's a Monday night. And
right.
We'll have the details on our website, but we'll be doing that as an opportunity for people to come and hear about the ministry. But we intentionally schedule them while we have programming in session so that people can see the ministry in action live. Because hearing me talk about it is one thing, but getting to see what's actually happening is really exciting to people.
Betsy, I want to talk a little bit about ESL, but one of our callers would like to ask a question. So if everybody's got their earbuds in here, let's go to KVDT. Ricardo, I think you had a question about ESL. Go for it.
Yeah, I was listening to your station, and I guess maybe for the last 3 or 4 months, I've wanted to do something to reach out to the community. And I thought this was something that I could get involved in. I do speak English very well, and my Spanish is not too good. I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. I grew up speaking English, but I am Hispanic. And so I just thought, wow, this would be a way for me to reach out. And so I'm just interested in what would I do, what would be the first steps. And I think I just heard him say something about a meeting February the 4th.
Yes. Well, Ricardo, man, we would love to talk with you more about that. Most of our ESL teachers do not speak any Spanish. That is not at all a requirement. A few of them do, and that can be an advantage in the early levels. But again, our students there to learn English, and that's the primary qualification. So we are just starting our new program semester. Actually, today begins our January to May semester, and we are still have a couple of ESL teacher spots to fill. So I'd love to talk with you about it before February 4th. That'll where we'll have a tour of the building. But Ricardo, if you want to call the number that we have for our ministry, it's 469-615-0165. And that'll put you through, and someone from our staff will be back in touch with you. We offer some great training for our ESL teachers. And one of the things we do that we've started recently is having a learning community for our ESL teachers, so that during one of the breaks for the students, our ESL teachers get together, and our newer ESL teachers have the chance to learn from some of our more experienced ESL teachers. So, Ricardo, we'd be thrilled to have you get involved. That would be wonderful.
Great. Could you repeat that number for me, please? I got the 469.
Yes, it's 469-615-0165. 0165.
That's
right.
469-615-0165.
That's right.
And I might just mention, Ricardo, we also have a link to Casa del Lago, and it has the phone number there. It has the address. It has an email, because you can also send to info@casadelago.org. That will work. And so there's all sorts of ways you can connect up. Ricardo, just before I let you go, Betsy, any comments you might have? Because obviously you're overseeing some of the ESL, and if Ricardo is probably one that called in, there are others listening right now going, okay, what does this involve again? So that they kind of understand what they're getting themselves into.
Well, I used to do ESL. Now I'm in early childhood. But yeah, as Josh mentioned, just having the love to help the community, the love to Christ, and it's a really, really nice community to work with, and with a lot of needs. So that would be great.
Yeah. Ricardo, I appreciate you calling in today.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I was listening to you this morning.
Well, I'm glad you were too.
The last few months, I've wanted to do something, and this looks like looks like something that'll fit.
We would love that, Ricardo. That would be great.
The Spanish that I do know, I taught myself, so I do have a little idea of how it, what it takes to learn a language. So that might be something I can use when I use on myself. I might be able to be a little bit more effective.
Well, I think they're ready to sign you up. So, again, use that phone number, or again, don't forget the website, pointofview.net. We have a link there to the website, or you can just go directly to casadelago.org. Either way, works it out pretty well. Betsy, let's talk about that early childhood education. That is another opportunity. Some of our listeners may say, I raised my kids, or maybe I did have early childhood education degree, and I really haven't thought of anything that I could do to help out. What would that be? And would that involve anybody that might want to come in and volunteer? What kind of expertise do they need to have, and what are the opportunities?
Well, working with little ones, there's always, if there's someone that would like to help us in preparing everything for the children, the crafts and everything, absolutely, they can call us and come. Or if there's someone that will like to come and share some kind of training for the teachers for us, that would be great as well. So they can call us. But also we have in the afternoons as well an afternoon program that it's more reading with the children, with elementary kids. And we do need a lot of volunteers in that area. And we have, we're just starting. This is our first year. And we help kids from 1st to 3rd grade. And we do this along with, we've been trained by Readers to Leaders. So we will train every volunteer that will come. So if they're interested as well in helping us in this reading program in the afternoons, that would be great.
And I was just thinking, too, that if you're like a high school student and you have to do some community service, or maybe you're in early childhood education at Dallas Baptist University, there are some opportunities right there to do ministry instantaneously, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Absolutely. We, as Betsy alluded to, We just this fall started an after-school program. It's on Monday and Wednesday afternoons, and that is first to third grade. The techniques and all that we're using in that were sort of pioneered for us by an organization called Readers to Leaders. It's another nonprofit. They do great work. But we began partnering with them in a summer program that we do every year where it's, I think, one of the most exciting things we do. We train a group of high school students to lead reading camps for elementary school age children in the Bachman Lake community. And we have our youth corps of the youth, and then these elementary school age children who come to us for reading camps. And Readers to Leaders has helped us develop a really robust curriculum to intervene. And one of the things that happens in low-income communities like Bachman Lake is that when a child is out of school, they're often not getting the same educational and enrichment opportunities that, say, kids in the suburbs or more affluent environments get. And so a lot of kids lose learning. They talk about the summer slide, and there's often as much as 2.5 months of learning lost during the summer. And so our goal in starting this program and working with these children is really trying to help them certainly at least retain, and we see some of them really advance in their reading during the summer months. And so that's another area where we are really actively serving children and are glad to have people come and serve with us in that program.
Well, and again, I just want a good example of getting some high school students involved. This could be a high school ministry in a local church that says, okay, here's an opportunity for ministry. Could be individuals that want to learn some of that. And again, I know so many young people today need to have some kind of community service. So why not right there at Casa Del Lago instead of someplace else at where you're already serving ministry needs of people that are actually getting some needs met? Sounds to me like you will take just about anybody that has a desire to use their gifts for the Lord in that environment. So again, let's mention that we do have a link to the website. It's Casa del Lago, and there are some great opportunities. As you click there, you'll see that there are some programs. There's a calendar, opportunities, some of the contact information we just gave to Ricardo. And for those of you that still have other questions, we've got about a half an hour left, so you can give us a call. That number is 1-800-351-1212. That's the on-air number. Some of you might say, well, I don't really want to talk to someone on the air, but I do have a question. You can go to our Facebook Live post, which is there right now. We're broadcasting there as well, so that's an opportunity for you to just leave a note, and we'll read those on the air as well, just in case you have some comments or questions. But the simplest one is simply go to the organization that we've just mentioned a minute ago, because they are certainly able to answer all the questions that you might have. And so I would encourage you to take the time to visit the website, to find some of those links, and make that phone call if you'd like. And we'll come back and talk a little bit more about some of those resources. But again, for those of you that didn't have a pencil a minute ago, grab it right now, because again, it's 469-615-0165. And again, hopefully you have that. And if not, we have a link on the website. We need to take a break. We got a lot more to cover. We'll do that right after this.
There is no more dangerous time than when things are going well. Remember Elijah on Mount Carmel? Fire came down. There was no doubt who was God, but what happened next? He went from amazing faith to a time of great fear and depression. Many Christians have been very thankful a certain Democratic candidate for president was not the one to nominate 2 replacements for the Supreme Court. But as with Elijah, times of great victory are also times of great danger. Moments like this are not the time to take it easy. This is not the time to let our guard down. This is a time to double down on our work in the community, to serve and pray and plan and invest in a better future. This is the time to join Point of View's Truth Team 360 to make sure today's promising gains are not lost tomorrow. Show your commitment to our future by visiting pointofview.net/team or call 800-347-5151. Ask to join the Truth Team. Pointofview.net/team and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Back once again talking about Casa Del Lago. And if you would like to know a little bit more, 1-800-351-1212. If you have a comment or question, or else just sit back, take some notes, learn a little bit more about this. Let me just real quickly before I get to Betsy, because I want to talk about some of the stories that we can share with our audience. Josh mentioned that when you go to the website, and we always encourage people at this hour time of the day to go to the website, especially during the bottom of the hour and before the top, you have a section on programs, calendar, opportunities, a variety of others. So if people find themselves saying, I'd like to know more, probably the best place to go is to the website. And the good news is for some of our listeners who know Spanish better than English, you have it in Espanol, right?
We do. We do. There's some great videos up there as well. The short videos, it'll give you a good introduction to what we're about.
Let me just suggest for just a minute, too, watch one of those videos. Some of them are really short. And then there's a share button there. Click that share button and put it on like your Facebook page, maybe a Twitter feed. Maybe you know someone in your church that needs to know about this, or you know somebody that maybe he's always, like Ricardo a minute ago, wanted to teach ESL. Take the time to take that share button and send it to somebody, and that way you can kind of maximize the impact of this interview today. But Betsy, let me talk about this. We've been talking about early childhood education. We talked about some of the needs that need to take place there, but share some of the stories. What's been happening when you've been involved in ministry?
Well, one of the stories that had impact most of me and my teachers is, as I mentioned before, we received children, some of them never been exposed to reading every night or playing with Play-Doh or coloring. So we have this 2.5-year-old boy, and then when he started he discovered for the first time when we were using a crayon, when he saw the color that was showing up from the crayon, he was surprised. And that surprised me that he just realized that for the first time. But he didn't have any strength in his hand, because talking then to the mom, and she said, because they've been living in different places. They never had a place of their own. She never exposed them to that. So they basically, and she was working all day and the dad too. So someone else was taking care of them in front of the TV all day. So we started working with her and with him as well. And in a few months, we see a big change in him being able to use a crayon properly and to follow instructions. And most of our children, they don't have a routine at home. They don't have a structure. Mm-hmm. So this is what I love about our program, that we work along with the moms. We have workshops for the moms every Monday, and we talk about the developmental stages of their children, what they can do at home. Because even though we have them 4 days, it's only 2 hours. So really the most impact is their moms. So we teach them, that they're their first teachers, what to do it with things that they have at home without needing to spend money. So you can tell the big difference when the moms start working with the child and we do our part at the classroom. We see a big impact in their lives. And we're very thankful and proud that this year he started in a school. He was accepted in, it's a classical education school. Sure. And this last the mom sent me a picture, and he was in the honor roll of her degree, his grade. So we are very thankful. We can imagine, how he started with us, not even being able to grab a crayon or to trace a line by himself. And now he's in the honor roll. And now the family is attending to a church because they didn't have a home church. Now they do.
Good.
And
yes.
So we're really, really thankful. And that's our main goal, to impact not only the child, but work with the whole family. And that's what we want. So, yeah. And, we have another story. This is another boy playing with the first time with Play-Doh. And then I was telling them, let's do little balls with the Play-Doh. And he was all frustrated. I can't do it. How do we do it? So when I grabbed his hand and said, well, just look very slowly, start doing a circle, very gentle circle. So he was doing it. Then when I put his hand up and he saw the little ball, he was like, what? I did it. So those little things, we also tell the moms how to do it at home. So make an impact in their lives. And yeah. So,
well, and again, I think it just illustrates what we take for granted is new. I mean, that I can take a crayon and it leaves color, or that I can create a Play-Doh ball. Things, Josh, things that you and I would have taken for granted, I would think in our circumstances, just illustrates kind of the need that is there right now in the Bachman Lake community, right?
It's a really great need, and Betsy's alluded to this aspect of it. I know there's been a major study, I think going back as early as 1995, showing that children in a high-income family, by the time they're 48 months old, will have heard probably 48 million words spoken or read to them. Yeah. And then it goes down to where children at a welfare level of income has probably only heard 12 million words spoken to them by the time they're 48 months old. Very true. And that has enormous impact for development of literacy and speaking and reading and just being prepared to enter their formal education. And so Betsy and her team do a fantastic job, and I think one of the things that they've done best of all is recognize what we believe is a very biblical conviction that, as mothers and fathers, we are our children's first teacher, right? And that responsibility lies primarily with us, and so we get to spend 2 hours a day for 4 days a week with these children, but such a big part of the ministry is equipping moms and dads to, who have them at home, all week. And that's where the transformation really happens.
And I've noticed that as well, because I've had a chance to be on the board and even work with our community in West Dallas. And one of the requirements, it's a school that is, again, a classical educational school, but one of the requirements is the parents have to come to all the PTA meetings, the PTF meetings, things like that. And the first time I spoke at one, I was thinking, they have me usually speak on media, and I'm thinking, how much do they even deal with media? Until I came to realize, back to what you said, Betsy, unfortunately, the kids are sitting in front of TV sets, or they're playing with their parents' iPhones, or, what kind of phone they might have, or smartphone or tablet or something like that, which gives them a little bit of an electronic experience, but it doesn't, as you said, strengthen their hands, doesn't strengthen their communication ability and all the rest. And so we recognize that all of what even we can do in 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, is still got to be supplemented by the parents and what they do at night, because if they come back to an unstructured environment, the kids aren't doing their homework, you're just kind of losing out. So the key to this is all that you do with the kids is great. What you do with the moms, even more important, isn't it?
Correct. And one of our first workshop that we give to the moms is what Josh was talking about, the importance of talking to your child, to have that conversation. So that's because sometimes, as a young, or being a mom with young children, you can get stressed of all the things that you need to do, or if they have other needs. And then the only way that they communicate with their children is giving commands or instructions, and that's it. There's not a conversation. So that's one of our first workshops that we do with moms, the importance of talking to your children, how to do it. And so that's been very eye-opening. And
also teaching them to read to their kids, get them, because they may not necessarily have perfect facility in the English language, but if they can just read that, they're getting some of those words that Josh was talking about just a minute ago that are really important. So whether you're in the Bachman Lake community or raising your own kids, these are some principles I think that are universal and need to be applied. So if you'd like to join us, again, that number 1-800-351-1212. Of course, you can leave some messages for us. We'll check our Facebook page here in just a minute. But again, I want to point you to the website, Casa Del Lago. It's just a great opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about what they are engaged in, and I hope that some of you will see the opportunity to maybe take one of those videos, click that share button, and send it on to someone else. This is the way we can kind of maximize some of the information. If you go there, it also, of course, shows you where they are located, and Northwest Highway right there at Bachman Lake, and I've driven right by it. know where that is. Been there many times before. And if you need that phone number again, since some of you probably didn't have the pencil in your hand when we gave it before, 469-615-0165 or info@casadelago.org are some ways to connect up. And we just talked about, was it February is a great opportunity to get a tour, but I think they will be glad to talk with you between now and then and to find out a little bit more. So let's take a break. When we come back, just a few other brief comments about this great ministry, and I hope that today, as you've learned more, you'll educate some others about it and maybe get your Sunday school class or your church involved, and they certainly could use you at whatever level you'd like to be involved. But let's take a break. We'll come back with some more conversation right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. Drug testing of employees is always a source of frustration. Nonetheless, it is essential to safety in the workplace. But does drug testing ever threaten an employee's religious liberty? J.B. Hunt Transport recently found itself facing that very question along with lawyers at the EEOC and the Sikh Coalition. Hunt Transport randomly tests its employees for drug use by using a hair sample. That works in most cases, but not for Sikh employees. Sikhism requires its followers to neither shave nor cut their hair. The simple act of plucking a hair from their head would cause Sikhs to violate their religious beliefs. Sikh applicants to the trucking company explained their predicament, but the company denied the request for an alternative drug testing option. Ultimately, they were not hired, and the employees sued, alleging religious discrimination. Wisely, the company agreed to settle the matter. Employers cannot make employment decisions based upon an employee's religion. Further, companies have a duty to accommodate an employee's religion so long as that can be done without undue hardship to the organization. In this case, refusing to hire someone because they would not cut their hair for a drug test is unreasonable when multiple alternative tests are at the company's disposal. Freedom, and especially religious freedom, demands that we do the hard work of balancing corporate safety against individual liberty. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
I'm Kelly Shackelford, President and Chief Counsel of First Liberty Institute. Let me ask you, what if America's best attorneys from the very top law firms got together to defend religious freedom in court? That's exactly what's happening at First Liberty. And the best news? We're winning over 90% of our legal actions. Come learn more at firstliberty.org. You'll be encouraged. That's firstliberty.org.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Back for a few more minutes, and again, we have Josh and Betsy in studio with us, Casa Del Lago, and if you'd like to know more, we have all of that on our website, pointofview.net. Josh, share with us, just for the few minutes we have left, kind of your vision. You have kind of a mission statement there, the vision, and I really didn't talk too much about how you got involved in this. I think as you share that, your own personal involvement might help other people understand why they need to get involved as well.
Yes, well, I was privileged to be called by God to plant a church in the Bachman Lake community, and that work began in 2002, and I labored in that neighborhood through 2015, and it was a wonderful community, really loved it. One of the things we started early on, because we recognized the need, was an ESL ministry, and we did that as a church.
Mm-hmm.
And as the church went along and as we grew, we saw some tremendous fruit from that ESL ministry, saw it really became a support community for so many people, saw people learning English, also saw many people come to faith in Christ, become involved in the church. It was really exciting. But as the pastor of the church, I had a problem, and it really kind of came to a head in around 2010, and that is, as a congregation in a low-income community, the congregation itself really didn't have the financial resources or honestly the human resources to continue carrying out ESL or meet so many of the other needs we saw in the community. And so I really began a journey in 2010 wrestling with, well, what do we do? How do we address this? I see so much fruit. I believe there's such a need for this, but the church itself doesn't have the resources. And so after a lot of conversations and a lot of prayer with a lot of different people, they said, well, you need to start a 501c3, a nonprofit organization alongside the church that'll be able to carry out these ministries. And that's really how CASA was born. CASA incorporated in 2014. And it's been tremendously exciting. I kind of sketched out that vision to my group of leaders, and then I actually left because I took a call in Los Angeles for 2 years and just recently returned. But board has done a tremendous job developing it. You know, the core of Casa Del Lago's vision is to show the love of Jesus Christ through ministries of service. And those ministries of service are primarily educational ministries. We've talked about ESL. We've talked about our early childhood education program. We have a financial literacy program. We do the summer literacy program, and now we've expanded to the after-school program. You know, certainly there are enormous needs. The statistics tell us only 57% of the people in our neighborhood have a high school diploma. Right. And so we are dreaming and sort of laying the plans and groundwork to think about expanding at some point to GED. We talk a lot about technology, and a lot of the families in our community don't have much opportunity to get exposed to using personal computers and things like that. So we're praying and beginning to lay plans for creating a computer lab where there could be some computer literacy classes and things like that. So there's some enormous opportunities to serve and enormous opportunities to show the love of Jesus. In a sense, the core of what we do is we are trying to welcome people who are moving here from outside the United States or for whom this is not their home culture, to welcome them and help them navigate what is a really complex environment. And obviously, learning English is a critical piece of that, but helping them navigate the education system, helping their children navigate the education system, helping them understand, hey, why wouldn't it be a good idea to fill out every credit card application that comes to you in the mail? Why would you opt to use certain banking services as opposed to maybe, say, payday lenders and things like that? So there are so many things that if you grew up in the United States and you grew up in this culture, you probably take for granted that people who are moving here from other cultures and other backgrounds don't have. And we really try and show the love of Christ by helping people navigate these often very complex culture we live in.
And I might just mention that since you are a 501c3, you certainly do welcome financial support, and I would encourage people to consider whether or not this would be just a place in which they could not only give their time and their talent, but their treasure as well.
Certainly, we would welcome that. There's a place on the website where you can give, and we, like so many nonprofits, we rely on people's generosity, and we've got a number of church partners in the Dallas area and outside of it. We're tremendously thankful to our church partners. And if you are at a congregation that you think might have an interest, I would love to come and speak. I'm a pastor, a church planner. I've done a lot of teaching. I've done a lot of preaching. I welcome the opportunity to come and speak in different contexts. And it's a real privilege.
Well, it's just great to find out a little bit more about this ministry. Betsy, anything else you want to add? We only have a few minutes left, but I know there were a couple other things that we might want to point people to on the website, right?
Yeah, well, we also have a kids club. So in the evenings when we're having our ESL classes Monday and Wednesdays from 6:30 to 8:30, we do have a kids club. So while the parents are taking their ESL classes, we have elementary children in this club. And they're being helped with homework, and they have their story time and crafts as well. So if there's someone that would like to volunteer as well with the Kids Club, that would be great.
Well, and I know our own Sunday school class is doing something with Buckner that very Saturday with that in mind. So it's kind of interesting to see how some of those things develop. So, again, let me just challenge some of our listeners out here to say, you can get involved individually. You know, you might be asking the question, what should I do? But I think it's a pronoun problem. I think you should say, what should we do? You maybe know a Sunday school class that you're in right now, a church that you're involved with, maybe even a community group. It doesn't necessarily have to always be Christian. Or maybe you have various other groups, or maybe you know of a couple of young people that do need to have some time doing some community service. These are just some great places to plug in. And again, you have places for interns and volunteers and all sorts of things, don't you?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We, if you're a high school student and you're interested in serving in the summer, our youth corps is going to be, we're going to start hiring and getting the applications out for that in the next few months. We'd love to have teams serve that. We've had different youth groups come and serve some with us during the summer, and that's something that we're still learning to do effectively and growing that, but we would love to have teams for that, and love to have Sunday schools or small groups come, or you can send Betsy to speak, or I'll come and speak. And, would love to be able to tell you more and share more about how to be involved.
And one more time, since you did mention that, and you're a church planter, you've been a pastor, if somebody'd like to have you come and teach in a Sunday school class for one Sunday or something like that, you could do that, kind of share the vision, those kinds of things. They just need to contact you there at Casa Del Lago, right?
Yes, that's correct. Would love to do that. I've done that at a number of churches and always welcome that opportunity.
Well, I hope that this educated you a little bit about a ministry that you probably didn't know a whole lot about until we started talking about it today. So take the time to go to Casa del Lago, and it's casadelago.org. But if you can't remember all that, just simply go to pointofview.net. We have that information. And as I mentioned before, my assignment is maybe take something there that you found, maybe one of the videos, one of the articles, maybe just hit that share button, send it to somebody else, and maybe they're in a position of leadership, or maybe they're heading up a Sunday school class. Maybe they're a pastor in a church saying, I didn't even know down the road that's what's going on. And so, again, we're doing our best to try to educate a few people about that. So, Betsy, I want to thank you for coming in today, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And Josh, thanks again. This has just been great to have you here. We've been trying to get you guys in studio, and I'm glad it worked out for today.
Yes, we really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Kerby.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Brigitte Gabriel will be with us. She has a new book called Rise, In Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom. Now, I suspect that some of you are going to want to ask her some questions about terrorism, about the border, about immigration. Yeah, I'm sure all that's going to be front and center, so we'll spend some time talking with her. And then just a little bit later, Dr. Stephen Meyer with us of Discovery Institute will be with us in the third hour. We'll be talking about this new conference, the Dallas Conference on Science and Faith, so I think you'll really appreciate those conversations. But again, don't forget that we have the website, pointofview.net. That's a place where you can find out more about Casa del Lago, as well as, of course, if you would like to read some of the articles that we've posted that we'll be talking about as well, all available at the website, pointofview.net. Let's take a break, though. When we come back, we will continue our conversation. Brigitte Gabriel will be with us by phone, and then a little bit later, Dr. Stephen Meyer. So all that coming up right after these important messages.
The leader looked around the table, motioning to the older men. He said, "You're here to remind us how faithful God has been in the past. Now, you middle-aged guys, you keep us focused on what God is doing right now. Make sure we don't stop. And you younger guys, keep us looking forward. Imagine what God wants us to be doing in the years to come." There's a lot of wisdom there. We have to be thankful for the past, focused on the present, and mindful to plan for a great future. Many listeners have made bold moves to partner with Point of View Radio and accomplish great things for more than 45 years. But as we look around, we do see many positive things, and I think we can all admit there's a lot more to be done. It's time to think about your next bold move, what you can do to invest for our nation's future. Be thinking about that. If you have an answer now, don't wait. Make your next bold move now. Give online at pointofview.net or call 800-347-5151. It's our future. The time is now. Pointofview.net and 1-800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
This hour, as we've been promoting, we are going to have an opportunity to talk with Brigitte Gabriel. It's been quite a while since we've had her on the program. This new book I really know you're going to enjoy. It's called Rise: In Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom. Of course, she is a New York Times best-selling author, a leading expert on the subject of global Islamic terrorism, and chairman of Act for America. Matter of fact, started Act for America in an effort to really protect citizens in the United States from the horror she experienced in her native Lebanon. You are familiar with some of the other books that she has written as well. Because They Hate, a survivor of Islamic terror warns America, and they must be stopped, why we must defeat radical Islam and how we can do it. This new book really focuses on what we can do as individuals to preserve our values and our freedom, really kind to identify certain behaviors that could threaten your local community. And again, the book has been out for just a couple of months, and we are privileged to bring her onto the microphone today. Brigitte Gabriel, the book is entitled Rise: In Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom. Thank you for joining us once again here on Point of View.
Thank you, Kerby. I'm delighted to be back with you.
We always enjoy your conversation, and I will say in just a few minutes we'll allow some of our listeners to ask questions, because I know they oftentimes do. We read some of the material you've posted, so maybe they would love to talk with you face to face. But let's begin with the book that spends a fair amount of time talking about a nation divided. You came to this country, obviously, from another country. You can speak to our country because you have grown up in Lebanon. You've seen the dangers, but you see that there are some very significant dangers we have in this country today because we are such a divided nation, aren't we?
Exactly. America as we know it is being transformed before our very eyes. The flag that once flew on every street corner is now considered a hate symbol on college campuses. Athletes who used to break out in tears of pride during the national anthem are now kneeling in protest. Patriotism is seen as hateful. Freedom of speech, Kerby, is being eliminated by the tyranny of tolerance. And our police are being targeted by criminals and thugs while the mainstream media victimizes their killers. Our own public schools, paid for by our tax dollars, are now used to promote Islamic propaganda inside the classroom, while our children can't even sing Merry Christmas and can't even sing Christmas carols. So the country our nation is at a crossroads of irreversible consequences, and the Judeo-Christian values it was founded upon are under attack both from abroad and from within. Because right now we are facing an enemy not only from radical Islamic terrorism from the outside who wants to attack us. We are facing an enemy within, radical Islamist leftists who would much rather America be destroyed and transformed into their vision, their socialist vision of what America should look like, instead of continuing America the way it is now. And that's why I wrote the book, to light a fire under people to understand what's at stake and what we can do as citizens to make a difference for our country and save our nation.
And again, since you've written the book, there have been a couple of other incidents that I think illustrate the point. We have a senator from Arizona that decided, I'm not going to take the oath of office on a Bible. I'm going to take it on a law book. I'd love to know which one that was. We have a representative from Michigan who took her oath of office on Jefferson's Quran and then said some pretty disparaging things about the president. So even the idea of taking your oath of office on a Bible is a little too controversial for some of our members of Congress right now, isn't it?
Exactly. And, you know, our founding fathers are turning in their grave. Our founding fathers gave everything they have, and most of them died broke trying to give us the country that we have today. The least we can do is protect and preserve that which they have given so much to create for us and pass it to our future generation. And as you see in my theme in the book, Kerby, you never really own freedom. We only preserve it for the next generation. And this is why we have a duty, we have a responsibility when we are watching elected officials who have no respect to our foundation. There is no denying that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values and principles. Even if you do not want to call it, you know, whatever you want to call it, you know, these are Western civilization was founded on Judeo-Christian values and principles. And this is who we are as people, and that's what made America great. That's what made America a shining city on a hill, shining for the rest of the world, a beacon of light. Right now, we have people who were sworn into office, this newly elected wave of elected officials. By the way, 40 candidates on the Democratic side ran as socialists. Socialists, 40. So we're not looking at Cortez from New York as the exception. You know, we should have gotten a clue when we saw Bernie Sanders run for president, the highest office in the land, and has such traction. You know, if it wasn't for Hillary Clinton stabbing him in the back, we could have almost ended up with a socialist president. So we're seeing we're seeing elected officials who ran and won as socialists. We are seeing people like Rashida Tlaib from Detroit basically waving the Palestinian flag at her election ceremony instead of the American flag, wearing a Palestinian garb at her swearing ceremony instead of regular American attire. For all the people that came to America, generation after generation in the last 300 years, we had people come from Italy. We had people, you know, Sikhs come from India. We had people come from the Middle East. We had people come from all over the place. Scots, Irish. You didn't see Scotch people being sworn into Congress dressed in kilts because they wanted to represent, you know, their country of origins. They all came here. Everybody wanted to be Americans. We wrapped ourselves with the American flag. They swore on the Bible. They were so honored to be Americans. This is not what we are seeing today in the new wave and the new batch of elected officials who just made it into Congress.
Well, and one of the other things you mentioned just in passing, of course, Representative Tlaib also on her map, she has a world map on her office, and over where Israel is a Post-it note said Palestine. So you can see that many of our listeners that are certainly concerned about the future of Israel can recognize she doesn't certainly have a lot of respect for Israel or even for the president. Of course, we can not mention all the things she said about him in the last couple of days. But I need to take a break. When we come back, though, I want to get into one of the other really important chapters in your book, which I've heard you address before on YouTube discussions, and that is the myth and irrelevance of the peaceful majority. As you say there, if I had $1 for every time I heard the phrase moderate Muslims in the media, Oprah would be calling me to borrow money. And people say, well, what about that? And so we've not only talked about what's happening internally, but as you talk about in the book, there are some real concerns in terms of the kind of unwillingness to assimilate with society. You talk about the weaponizing of the internet, kind of a replacement civilization, and even the transformation of America through immigration, which, of course, is an issue we're talking about right now with the shutdown and the desire of the president to build a wall. So let's take a break. When we come back, we are privileged to have with us this hour Brigitte Gabriel. And if you'd like to join us at any point, 1-800-351-1212. This book came out in September, and we are privileged to have a chance to talk with her right now. Rise in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom. We have information about her website, and about the book so that you can order it, and I'm sure you can find it in your local bookstore as well. So let's take a break. We'll talk about what about that peaceful majority out there. She's got some great comments about that, and we'll cover those with her right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
One thing the government shutdown has done is to remind us how big government is today and how many government employees there are. When just a quarter of the government shuts down and thousands of non-essential employees are sent home, you realize how large the federal government has grown. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Senator Jim DeMint about his book that warned how the bigs were taking away our liberty. Those would be big government, big business, and big labor. Let's look at the federal government. The federal budget last year was $4 trillion. The president and Congress are supposed to manage a bureaucracy with more than 4.8 million employees if you count military, civilian, and contract employees. No one in history has ever managed such a large organization. Yes, the current president has managed a large company, but it pales in comparison to these numbers. And remember that the previous president had really never managed anything and whose previous experience was as a junior senator. To put this in comparison, let's look at the two largest companies in the Fortune 500. Walmart employs 2.1 million people worldwide, and about 1.4 million of them are in the United States. Its annual revenue is $482 billion. Amazon employs just 500,000 people worldwide with annual revenue about $177 billion. If Walmart or Amazon were part of the federal government, they wouldn't even be the largest federal programs. Perhaps the difference in scale between the federal government and the major U.S. corporations helps illustrate why so many people believe it is too big and too inefficient. When we see non-essential federal employees sent home, you can't blame some of us for wondering whether some of them should stay home permanently. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kerby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Brigitte Gabriel with us as we talk about her book, Rise in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom, endorsed by all sorts of individuals who have been on this program. Dinesh D'Souza, Colonel Alan West, of course, who is oftentimes joining us on the roundtable. As a matter of fact, he even sits in this chair oftentimes as a guest host, Brent Bozell, Michelle Malkin, and on and on and on. But Brigitte, let's, if we can, talk about this issue that I've seen you address in various YouTube videos, but I think it was really worth a chapter in the book, the myth and irrelevance of the peaceful majority. You hear so often, well, what about the moderate Muslims? And every once in a while, we've had a chance to interview some of them on the air, but that's missing the point, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is missing the point. It's like when you go to the doctor and you have cancer. The doctor doesn't sit there and praises, oh, you are in great shape. Look at those gorgeous arms you have. Look at those. Look at that gorgeous hair you have. The doctor doesn't compliment all the wonderful right things going on in your body. The doctor looks at you straight in the eye and says, you have stage 3 cancer, and we have to do something about it immediately. The doctor then proceeds to discuss the problem with the cancer you have in your body and why you must be treated. You could be in great shape. You could weigh, whatever you want to weigh. The fact is, you have a deadly disease growing in your body, and if it's left unchecked, it can kill you. And this is exactly the way it is with the radical Islamic terrorism. Yes, we understand that there are a lot of moderate Muslims in the world. That's not the problem. Of course, there are 1.2 billion Muslims in the world today. Not all of them are radicals, but the radicals are the minority. And right now, according to World Intelligence Services, when you gather the intelligence of the countries who are paying attention to this, they estimate the radicals to be between 15 to 25%. And when you look at that number, compared to the world body population of Islamists, we are looking at 180 million to 300 million radical Islamists like Muhammad Atta, who have no problem killing themselves in order to attack Western civilization and kill the rest of us. That is a big number. That is as big as the United States of America. So yes, we have a lot of moderate Muslims in the world, but they become irrelevant when we are talking about the radical minority. And I always give, like I go in detail in my book, Kerby, when I talk about, when you look at the lessons of history, when you look at Germany, not all Germans were Nazis, but the Nazis drove the agenda, and as a result, dragged the whole world into war. 60 million people died worldwide, 14 million in concentration camps, 6 million were Jews. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at China, most Chinese were peaceful. Yet China was able to kill 70 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at the Russian communists as well, Russia was able to kill 20 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant, even though the majority of Russians were peaceful. I give the example about Japan as well. Most Japanese were peaceful, but Japan was able to kill 12 million people in Southeast Asia, and mostly killed by bayonets and shovels, by the way. When you look at the United States, on September 11th, 2001, we had 2.3 million Muslims from the Middle East living in the United States. It took only 19 hijackers, 19 radicals, to bring America down to its knees, destroy the World Trade Center, attack the Pentagon, and kill almost 3,000 Americans on that day. That is a problem we have to face as a nation.
I might just mention, too, there's just a lot of great action items here, activism for our nation. Also, some of the things we've talked about before, the fake hate examples and free speech and all the rest. But one of the chapters which kind of follows the one you just talked about is the weaponizing of the Internet. Now, this is something which, frankly, has been talked about and discussed and even surfaced in a number of different venues, whether it be Sean Hannity on television or even sometimes the FBI. But I think we fail to realize how ISIS, Al-Qaeda, a lot of various radical groups over the years have been able to use the Internet. What have you learned?
Absolutely. They are promoting radicalism and Islamic radicalism. When you go on the Internet, there are tens of thousands, and I'm talking tens of thousands of Internet sites set up by the radical Islamists to recruit. They are set up in different languages all over the world, by different bloggers, by different terrorist agencies, by different operatives in different languages, recruiting from every country. And this is why they are reaching to the disenfranchised Jews, people who are easily manipulated, people who are spending a lot of time on the Internet right now, and they are using a lot of symbolism to empower. And as you know, people follow a strong horse. And in the Islamic religion, everything is about symbols. Well, God, Allah must be blessing us, and you need to get involved. And to give you a perfect example, and I'm going to come back to the Islamists in the United States, Rashida Tlaib, the congressman that was elected to Congress, who basically swore on Jefferson's Quran, she's the one who had a Palestinian flag waving at her victory party. That video has gone viral worldwide. Islamists, and I infiltrate Islamic chat rooms, are bragging about how Allah is giving victory to the Islamists because look what just got elected to members of Congress. They are now inside the Congress passing laws. Now, why should we be concerned about this? Perception. I am not against anybody elected to Congress, but we are against people who are basically siding with Hamas, who do not believe that Hamas is a terrorist organization, like Rashida Tlaib, who basically took Israel out of the map and replaced it with a map of Palestine where Israel is non-existent. This is hatred. This is not just I do not like Israel and I do not like their policies. And I would like our listeners to understand one thing. This last election in November, we had 50 Muslims got elected to government. 50. We only hear about the two famous ones, Tlaib from Detroit and the one from Minnesota. But we had 50 Muslims elected on all across our country. We had 4 elected on the federal level. We had 13 elected on a state level. We had 8 elected on a county level. we had 19 elected on the municipal level, and we had 6 elected in the judiciary level. That is concerning because if they all represent what Rashida Tlaib is representing in Congress, where she surrounds herself with a Palestinian flag instead of an American flag, where she swears on a Quran instead of the Bible of the United States of America, where she is replacing Israel with Palestine, and this is going viral on the internet worldwide to Islamists. If she represents the 50 who were elected, we in America better start paying attention as to what's happening in our country and that what message and how that is used through the internet to recruit more Islamists to come to the United States saying, hey, we are winning in America, we are getting elected onto every level of government, we are transforming America, you need to join us and you need to be active and engaged.
One of the things I appreciate about your book is there's 15 chapters, but at the end of each chapter you have a section called Rise Up and Act. And by the way, we do have a link to actforamerica.org on our website. And here's just a good example where you talk about getting involved and learn how to use social media. Another one, if you see radical postings online from jihadist accounts, report those to the FBI and a number of others, because we recognize that as verbal as you are and as active as you are and as many individuals that are speaking to this issue, what you really hope to do with this book, as I understand, is to put together kind of an army of individuals that are activists to begin to make a difference in our communities and around the world.
Exactly, Kerby. That's exactly what I hope to do, is light a fire under Americans to be involved. Look, I started Act for America, my organization, and I encourage everybody listening to get involved, to go check us out. We are the largest national security organization, grassroots organization in the country with 1 million members. We have helped pass 100 bills on the federal level and the state level to protect America. Right now, our country is at a crossroad. We want every God-loving, God-fearing, America-loving, flag-waving, veteran-respecting, founding father honoring, police-respecting American to stand with us, to join us. Go to actforamerica.org, sign up to get our emails and action alerts, sign up, contact Congress, click on Contact Congress. We have different bills on our high priority list. We give you, enter your zip code, we give you your elected official's name, phone number, email address, their address. We even have a pre-written letter for you that you can send to them. All you have to do is click a button. My goal with this book is to really help the average citizen who doesn't know what to do. Because let's face it, on our side, Kerby, our side is educated, but they do not know how to be active and mobilized. This book is a roadmap as to how you can be effective as a citizen and an instrument of change for our country.
Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll take some of those phone calls, 1-800-351-1212. We do have actforamerica.org. You can go to the website, or you can go to our website, pointofview.net. Either way, we'll get you there. Of course, you can get a copy of the book. I would imagine you'll be able to find it in your local bookstore, but you can get it there as well. And there are a lot of action steps, and I know we have a lot of activists that listen to Point of View, so this is the kind of manual you've been looking for. But when we come back, we'll take some phone calls, too, 1-800-351-1212. Privileged to have with us Brigitte Gabriel. Be right back.
Great news. If you missed the deadline to sign up for health insurance, or more importantly, if you sign up for a plan that you're just not happy with, you still have a choice. It's called MediShare, and MediShare is a Christian healthcare sharing program. It's been around for 25 years. They have more than 400,000 members now around the country. And get this, over the years, MediShare members have shared more than $2 billion of each other's medical bills, so they could help share your needs too. And best of all, you could save a lot of money with MediShare. The typical savings for a family is around $500 a month. Your savings could be more or less, but think about what you could do with that extra money every month. So if you think you're stuck with a high-cost health plan that doesn't have much to offer, think again. You can join MediShare anytime, so call them today and check it out. There's no pressure. They're super easy to talk to. 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
It takes a team to win. Be part of Point of View's Truth Team and bring truth and healing to America. Go to pointofview.net/team, pointofview.net/team, and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
If you'd like to join a conversation, 1-800-351-1212. Brigitte Gabriel with us as we are talking about her new book. And again, you can probably find it in your local bookstore, but we also have a link to actforamerica.org. And again, the book is entitled Rise in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom. And Brigitte, let's just talk a little bit more. As you mentioned before we went to the break, what's available at actforamerica.org. You've got 1 million members, lots of activists. I would encourage people to watch your YouTube video and then click the share button and maybe start a conversation on Facebook or Twitter. But what is available to our listeners, since we have so many listeners that are activists, that they can find when they go to your website?
Oh, this is fantastic. We have a whole program for activism. We have chapters nationwide. People can either join a chapter. If there is no chapter near you, start a chapter. Send us an email and fill an application to start a chapter. We will mentor you. We will train you. We will provide you information and support. We will literally hold your hand on how you can mobilize in your local community. We have 40,000 activists nationwide that we communicate with. We send out once a week 3 in 10, 3 things you can do under 10 minutes that will make a difference for the country, and you can do them while sipping your cup of coffee in the morning, sitting in your pajamas. We want to make it as easy as possible for every single person to mobilize and be engaged. We have monthly conference calls that we hold with our activists and our donors and chapter leaders, with key figures from Washington, D.C. about what we are doing and what they can do in their community to make a difference. I know our upcoming conference call is going to be with Tom Holman, the former director of ICE, talking about the border. I think that's coming up next week. So I encourage people to get involved at whatever level. If you can give of your time, give of your time. If you can give of your expertise, give of your expertise. If you can stand with us financially, support us so we can do the work on Capitol Hill. And look, Kerby, we were able to pass 100 bills on the federal level and the state level because of the activism of good people who said, I'm going to make a difference. Today is my defining moment. I'm going to make a difference for the country. I'm going to do something at least once a week or once a day that will make a difference. Whether you are retired, whether you are working a full-time job, whether you are a student, we have something for every single citizen where they can be involved and they can be engaged, whether as a volunteer, whether as a contributor, whether at any level, wherever they are, we will meet them and we will train them. I encourage people to go to actforamerica.org, sign up to join us, sign up as an activist, as a chapter leader, to join a chapter, to become a donor, a monthly sustainer. Whatever you do, do something to help us make a difference for the country.
Again, we have a link to that on our website. Let's take some phone calls along the way. 1-800-351-1212. I know some of you would like to talk with Brigitte. And so let's head up to the state of Maine, first of all. Bob, thank you for joining us today. What's your point of view?
Hi, thank you, Kerby. I hope I can frame this correctly. I see her point very clearly, but I kind of see it as a big part of an even bigger situation in the country where these people were not elected solely by Muslims. There are many supporters, and they've created a climate in the country that has made Christianity almost a second-class citizen, where many Christian families have gone to homeschooling. And let me just make a little stretch here. In occupied Ireland during the many 800 years of their troubles, many times they had head schools where they were not permitted to openly express and teach their faith. And I kind of almost liken this situation to like a precursor of that type of situation where they feel compelled to take their children out of the public arena and teach them themselves.
Well, it does seem to me, Brigitte, right now that if you say I'm a Christian, if you say I'm a patriot, patriotism is seen as politically incorrect. Christianity is seen as exclusionary or xenophobic or homophobic, whatever. And the subtitle of your book is Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom. We need to come back and defend some of those values, don't we?
absolutely, Kerby. And thank you, Bob from Maine, for bringing up such a good point. Absolutely. And this is why it is important for Christians to not just take their children out of the school and say, okay, I want to teach them at home. You need to go out and you need to fight the battle as an activist. Look, Jesus was the most famous activist. When Jesus saw that something was going wrong, he stood up, he fought, he went into the temple and overturned the table. We need to follow in Jesus' footsteps. This is exactly why I named the organization Act for America. Not hope for America, not wish for America, not think about America, not pray for America, but act for America, because without action, nothing changes. And I'm a firm believer that every single one of us can be used as instruments of change in God's hand to make a difference for the country. Our job is not only to pray in the corner and read our Bibles in the morning. Our job is to understand what the Bible's message to us every day, and go out and do battle and be instruments of change. God doesn't change the world through lightning in the sky. God changes the world through his people. And for a very long time, Christians in our country sat on the sideline thinking, I'm going to pray about it. I even have Christians who didn't even vote in the presidential election before the last one, because they said, I'm praying for our country, but I'm not going to vote. For every person that prayed and did not vote, they participated in electing somebody who did not share their value when they elected President Obama, who was embarrassed of America, apologizing for America, did not believe nor stand up for the Judeo-Christian values our country was founded upon. And that's why my book, Rise, and my organization are to mobilize, empower every single Christian and American who believe in the foundation of our country to say, I'm going to act starting today. Let today be your defining moment to not only pray, but to become an instrument of change in God's hand and be an activist like Jesus was.
Excellent. Let me, if I can, jump ahead to one of the chapters, which, again, I think answers a question, Brigitte, that people wonder about, and that is what you call the leftist Islamist coalition. I mean, we just mentioned, of course, you have Senator Kristen Sinema, who would not take the oath of office on a Bible, but is an atheist. And if you're an atheist, fine. Or whether it's Bernie Sanders, an atheist, if you want to serve in government, that's fine. I can vote against you, but, there is no religious test. But then they will hold hands or cooperate with Rashida Tlaib and some of the other Muslims. And it's been a puzzle to, I think, some of my listeners. How is it that you have leftists who are secular working in almost hand in hand with Muslim Islamists? That almost seems contradictory. Can you help us out?
Because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And the leftists in our country right now hate America so much. The America that you and I love. The America that our founding fathers envisioned. The America that our listeners love. The leftists hate, and they want to transform that America. And you know who else wants to transform that America? The Islamists in our country. And Rashida Tlaib is the perfect example, who wrapped herself in a Palestinian flag and swore on a Jefferson's Islamic Quran. By the way, which Jefferson got, so he can understand the mindset of our enemies that we're attacking. Yes. Remember, most people don't even know why Jefferson had that Quran. So those people have a common bond and a common interest, and that is to win the fight against us. Let's recognize one thing. We are at war. Our enemy, the leftists and the Islamists, know that we are at war. The people on our side don't believe we are at war. They are in La La Land. They are trying to reach out to them, talk to them, negotiate with them, show them how nice we are. We are not fighting to win. We're not even fighting. We're still trying to reason with our enemies. Our enemies is fighting, and they are fighting to win. And that's what we need to understand. And they're not only coming together, Kerby, they are funding. So you've got the leftists funding the Islamists. You have leftist organizations like Planned Parenthood, the ACLU, MoveOn.org, funding the likes of Linda Sarsour, who is the co-chair of the Women's March, and funding people like Rashida Tlaib, who just elected to Congress. I read an interview that I actually discuss in my book, Rise, an interview with Glamour Magazine with Linda Sarsour, who was named Glamour Magazine Woman of the Year or something like that. And she was talking about how she is so proud. She said, for my 16 years of activism, I have never seen such support on all levels coming from different organizations. And she goes through the list of how leftist organizations are not only supporting her, with their efforts, but they're also financially contributing to her movement. So now you see it. They're working together hand in hand against America.
We're going to take a break, but again, I'm glad you mentioned that just in passing. I mean, the reason that Thomas Jefferson had a Quran is he wanted to understand the Barbary pirates, because after all, we were going to take the battle to the shores of Tripoli. So whether it was Keith Ellison, who took his oath of office on Jefferson's Quran, or Rashida Tlaib, the reason Jefferson had the Quran is he wanted to understand what exactly we were up against. Let's take a break, though. We got some more phone calls. We'll take those right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. Drug testing of employees is always a source of frustration. Nonetheless, it is essential to safety in the workplace. But does drug testing ever threaten an employee's religious liberty? J.B. Hunt Transport recently found itself facing that very question along with lawyers at the EEOC and the Sikh Coalition. Hunt Transport randomly tests its employees for drug use by using a hair sample. That works in most cases, but not for Sikh employees. Sikhism requires its followers to neither shave nor cut their hair. The simple act of plucking a hair from their head would cause Sikhs to violate their religious beliefs. Sikh applicants to the trucking company explained their predicament, but the company denied the request for an alternative drug testing option. Ultimately, they were not hired, and the employees sued, alleging religious discrimination. Wisely, the company agreed to settle the matter. Employers cannot make employment decisions based upon an employee's religion. Further, companies have a duty to accommodate an employee's religion so long as that can be done without undue hardship to the organization. In this case, refusing to hire someone because they would not cut their hair for a drug test is unreasonable when multiple alternative tests are at the company's disposal. Freedom, and especially religious freedom, demands that we do the hard work of balancing corporate safety against individual liberty. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
I'm Kelly Shackelford, President and Chief Counsel of First Liberty Institute. Let me ask you, what if America's best attorneys from the very top law firms got together to defend religious freedom in court? That's exactly what's happening at First Liberty. And the best news? We're winning over 90% of our legal actions. Come learn more at firstliberty.org. You'll be encouraged. That's firstliberty.org.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Back for a few more minutes, and again, we may run out of time before we run out of phone calls. Matter of fact, that's probably a given. Brigitte Gabriel with us as we talk about her book, Rise in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom. Of course, you can go to actforamerica.org and ask some questions there as well, and of course, sign up and find out a little bit more. But let's see if we can get in a few phone calls before the end of the program this hour. Arizona, KNLB. Gary, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. It popped in my head. How does this woman, I respect what she's doing, but how does she keep her organization clean from other radical organizations like white supremacists and the what's the ones that wear the capes over their head? I can't remember those.
KKK and all those kind of things, yeah. You know, again, you've got individuals that want to defend Judeo-Christian values and freedom. Now, by and large, I think any organization the size of yours with 1 million people, there may be a few people we wouldn't necessarily agree with, but talk about how you can make sure you got the kind of right people that are going to go out there and make a difference in America.
Well, I tell you, for our chapter leaders, we vet those. So those will actually sign an association agreement with us to represent our organization as chapter leaders. Those are extremely vetted. We have 3 layers of vetting to make sure that the people who are joining us, where they're going to say, I'm a chapter president of Act for America, they will be able to represent the point of view of the organization and what we stand for. So the message will not be muddied out or dirtied by people who we do not agree with or who are infiltrators posing to basically be on the same line as us, yet go out and misbehave in a way that we do not agree with as an organization. As an organization, we preach love, we preach tolerance, we preach respect, and we preach patriotism. We do not basically lobby for the persecution of any group of people based on their faith or their color or their nationality, etc. We are Americans who came together, put our differences aside, and came together for the protection of the nation. And this is exactly where we are right now. We need people coming together who believe in the same principles and the same foundation to stand together and fight. Now, are we going to be able to vet every single member? When you are the size of 1 million people, there is no way you can vet them. You're going to have somebody in any organization, regardless who it is, even in churches. You have churches with members that do sometimes the wrong thing, who do not represent anything the church stands for. You can never clean and filter against that. But we hope and pray that those who join us will always do the right thing by our country and by our organization to represent and defend everything that our founding fathers stood up for. And I hope that they would represent the ideas and the principles our founding fathers stood for.
And I might just mention, too, Gary, if you get a copy of the book, Chapter 12 talks about what she calls the business of fake hate and the Southern Poverty Law Center, some of the things we've talked about before, where I think there's an attempt to try to tar with a brush that's not appropriate. But let me take at least a few more phone calls here. We'll go to Texas KCCT. And Pete, what is your question for Brigitte?
Yes, sir. The trials that they had, where Hillary, they were all voting for Hillary. They were all against Mr. Bush. Anyway, they were all accused of being on the far left, and they got rid of a few of them. But how many more of those socialists, communists, and Muslims are still up there in that?
Again, there are people that have been part of the previous administration that were members or associated with the Muslim Brotherhood. You've had individuals, Brigitte, that have said, well, Hamas, Hezbollah, and others are not terrorist organizations. This is sometimes referred to as the deep state, but help us out. You've obviously done some investigation there. What have you found?
Oh, my goodness. The deep state is alive and well, and they are still there. Remember, they are government employees who are there until they retire. You can't even fire them. You cannot even get rid of them. This is why President Trump, when he first was elected, had such a difficult time cleaning departments, because even if you can move a group of people from one department out of one department, you have to move them to another department. So they are still working within the government. You cannot get rid of them. You can try to control it as much as you can, but you cannot get rid of them. Unfortunately, there's a lot of those socialist, Islamist, basically Trump hater and America haters who are still operating within our own government. And that's why President Trump is having a very hard time. It's a miracle he's getting the things done that he has gotten done in the first 2 years. But we have a lot of work to do, and that's the reason why. Look, one federal judge out in Hawaii is able to stop the president from basically issuing a resolution to vet people coming into our country. All it takes is one judge, and that's exactly why under President Obama he was very careful in how many federal judges they appointed, because this is the power that they have. And that's why Keith Ellison, for example, ran for Attorney General in Minnesota, because he understands the power that he will have as Attorney General. So we have people like that all over the country.
Well, we're just about out of time, and I wanted you to one more time talk about what people will find when they go to your website, actforamerica.org. You have alerts, you have news updates, you have a lot of resources. And back to the point you made a minute ago, there's a local chapter. Sometimes when we ask Brigitte, what can I do? It's a pronoun problem. It should be, what can we do? Join with a group that's already making a difference. You'll get encouragement and accountability. So talk about what's available when people land on your website.
Exactly. We have chapters all over the nation. We have activists all over the nation. There are people who say, well, you know what, I work full time. I don't have time to go to meetings. You can just be an activist. Click on the activist list. That means you will get our specific action alerts that we need you to act on immediately. We need you to be involved in certain things. If I come to your community to give a presentation, we want to be able to reach out to the activists and work with them and make something happen. You can join a chapter if you have time. If you have time to attend chapter meeting, click on join a chapter. If you want to be a leader, if you want to take it a step further and say, you know what, I'm very well connected in my community. I'm connected in my church. I'm connected in my Bible study. Sign up to lead a chapter. Then we will connect you with people in your community who are looking to join a chapter, but they don't have the ability to lead a chapter. They don't want to organize. There are many ways people can get involved. For those who are just listening, who just want to get our emails and action alerts, just sign up to get our emails and action alerts. We want you to be able to get the emails and information that we send out. That's very important. If you can stand with us and support us as a sustainer, please stand with us financially. Enable us to do the work that we do on a national level. We need support. Our enemy is organized and supported, and we need to at least play in the same arena as our enemy is playing. So everybody can contribute. Everybody can do something on whatever level. Also important, click on Contact Congress. We have a list of high priority bills. Now, of course, those bills will change numbers with the new Congress, but it's constantly updating. We have letters that you can send to your members of Congress about these bills. We keep an eye on national security bills on the federal level and the state level to protect the country. So no matter where you are right now, no matter where you're listening to us from, we work on issues in your state and we work on issues on the federal level. We want you to be able to know about these issues, and that's why we want you to be able to check that link to Contact Congress and sign up to get our emails and action alerts so we can reach you when there's a bill coming down for a vote in your state or at the federal level so you can make your voice heard and contact your elected official.
Very good. Again, we have a link to your Facebook page as well as your Twitter account and, of course, to the website, actforamerica.org. The book is entitled Rise in Defense of Judeo-Christian Values and Freedom. No doubt you can find it in your local bookstore, but you can also, of course, go to actforamerica.org and get it there as well. Brigitte, it's been too long since we've had you on the program. Thank you for joining us once again here on Point of View.
Thank you so much. Always a delight to be with you.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we have some other things to cover. So let me just mention for those of you that will still be with us on the third hour of our broadcast, or the second of our national hour, and that is we have Dr. Stephen Meyer with us, and we're going to be doing a couple things. First of all, we're going to be talking about this whole issue of intelligent design. There's also a Dallas conference on science and faith. We wanted you to know about that so that either you could attend it or you could watch it online or get some of the material associated with it. So we'll be talking about that with him. And if you want to find out a little bit more about the various topics we've been addressing today, you can go to our website, which is pointofview.net. And that is realize that we've obviously got an opportunity for you to join with us. But we need to take a break. We'll come back with more right after this.
Applying God's wisdom to civic life, Point of View can be a key part of a successful mission. I believe in America. I believe God wants His best for us. We can face whatever the world throws at us as long as we stand together. If you have not signed on, please do it now. Support Point of View Radio today at pointofview.net. Set up your monthly gift by clicking the Truth Team 360 picture and then carefully follow the directions. Pointofview.net. By phone, you can give at 1-800-347-5151, 800-347-5151, or mail that first donation to Point of View, Box 30, Dallas, Texas 75221, Box 30, Dallas 75221. or call us 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kerby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of View, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kerby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging. Apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now, Kerby Anderson.
This hour, I want to spend some time talking about a conference that is taking place in the Dallas area, the Dallas Conference on Science and Faith. One of the speakers is now joining me for the hour, so this is an opportunity for you to learn more about intelligent design, how to think about science from a Christian point of view, and of course also, if I hope that you will join the conference, or if not, get some of the material and some of even the other resources that are available to it. Dr. Stephen Meyer has been on the program with us many times before, holds a PhD in the philosophy of science from the University of Cambridge, a former geophysicist and college professor. Of course, he now directs the Discovery Institute Center for Science and Culture. You know that we have talked with him about all of his books, whether it's The Signature in the Cell, DNA and the Evidence for Intelligent Design, or The Case for Intelligent Design, or perhaps one of the more recent ones, Darwin's Doubt, The Explosive Origin of Animal Life. And so just some great resources that we'll be talking about today here on Point of View. So Dr. Stephen Meyer, welcome back to Point of View.
Great to be with you, Kerby. Thanks for having me on.
Let's, if we can, talk a little bit about the conference and then get into the broader issue of intelligent design. And I was just thinking about this conference. I remember a conference years ago done by one of the co-founders of Probe Ministries, John Buell, and one of my original individuals that was with me at Probe, who then later was with the other ministry that was the Foundation for Thought and Ethics, which is now associated with Discovery Institute, Charles Thaxton. And if I remember right, I think you went to one of those conferences. They had it at SMU, and they really kind of had a point-counterpoint between some of these scientists. And it does seem to me that this is another opportunity to hear some very outstanding individuals give you a perspective about intelligent design that you just, quite frankly, are not going to get from the mainstream media.
Well, absolutely. And you're right, there's been a history of seminal conferences and events in Dallas. One that really changed the direction of my life was way back in 1985 when I was working as a geophysicist for one of the oil companies in town, and it was a conference on cosmology. It was on the origin of the universe, the origin of life, and the origin and nature of human consciousness. And it featured speakers from both an atheistic, materialist point of view on the one hand, and from a theistic or Christian point of view on the other. And it was a fascinating exchange on those kind of fundamental worldview shaping issues. And then in, I believe it was 92, there was a really important event at SMU, and I was just out of grad school at that point, and ended up going counterpoint with Michael Roos, a fairly famous philosopher of biology, and a number of the now leading proponents of intelligent design actually met at that conference. It was the first time I met Michael Behe or William Dembski, and so Dallas has kind of been an interesting hub for these ideas way back to the beginning, starting with Charles Thaxton and his work with you guys, and then with the Foundation for Thought and Ethics both. So, yeah, it's been and so it's really exciting to have another such event this year, and it will be it's going to be held at the Park Cities Baptist Church, and we already have over 700 people pre-registered. And it will feature the very famous organic chemist from Rice University, Jim Tour, my colleague from Discovery, Jay Richards, who's written with Guillermo Gonzalez the book Privileged Planet, which is a fascinating book about the special features of our planetary system and Earth in particular that make it not only suitable for life, but make it possible for human beings to discover the wonders of the cosmos. And then we'll also have with us Eric Metaxas, who's always good value. He's going to open the conference with one of his Socrates in the City style interviews with me, and we've done a couple of these before. One of them, I think, is up online, and you can get a sense of what Eric's about. He's a terrifically deep-thinking Christian intellectual, but also extremely funny. And so I think the conference should be a lot of fun as well as very informative.
Yeah, I think Eric Metaxas is going to be the stand-up comedian for the group, and he certainly does a great job. As a matter of fact, almost all those individuals you just mentioned have been interviewed many times here on Point of View. Jay Richards on, not only to talk about intelligent design, but now he spent a lot of time in the area of economics. Of course, we've had you on many times, and Eric, of course. Jim Torr is somebody I've known for years and have never been able to get him on the program, but need to, because we just think very highly of the work that he does. First, just as an outstanding Christian at Rice University. Second of all, the way he's starting to call out some of the people the way you have, of saying, you know, you really have just got to stop teaching about this idea of prebiotic evolution, saying that we can explain the origin of life. You have no evidence for this. As a matter of fact, we have very good contrary evidence to some of the things you're saying. So he brings a new voice to a conversation that I am so glad that you're bringing him to, because he is somebody that we've had such high respect for, and I'm glad that he'll be at the conference as well with you.
Yeah, it's a very authoritative voice as well that he brings to this subject of prebiotic evolution or the origin of life. He's one of the 2 or 3 leading organic chemists in the world. He's got over 600 peer-reviewed publications, 150 patents or more. I mean, he's just an unbelievable powerhouse. And a few years ago, he took on this question of the chemical evolutionary origin of life, and he said, essentially, and he's giving a full talk on this, and he's a tremendous speaker, but he points out that at every step in the way in these experiments that allegedly simulate the origin of life via undirected chemical processes, the intelligent chemist is guiding the process. They choose products that have been already manufactured by other intelligent chemists. They follow very specific recipes. They remove interfering byproducts in the chemical reactions to allow them to move forward, and they still don't get very far in the direction of life. But to the extent they succeed at all, it's only with the help of intelligent intervention, and that certainly doesn't illustrate the power of undirected chemical processes. So he's really been kind of holding people to account to not exaggerate the claims of these scientific theories in service of undirected evolution.
Well, again, when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that are in your book, Signature in the Cell, Darwin's Doubt, and certainly we'll get into that, especially when we talk about signature in the cell, DNA and the evidence for intelligent design. If there's one thing we recognize is that any kind of code, and I have over the years had to write computer code. Matter of fact, I put myself through graduate school writing computer code, recognize it doesn't happen by chance. As a matter of fact, one of the great frustrations for some of us that write computer code is one mistake in the wrong place and nothing works, which is a very good analogy to what we have in terms of DNA. So we want to talk about that for just a few minutes. And then the whole issue of Darwin's doubt, which kind of gets back to some of the conversation with James Tour, you know, the Cambrian explosion in life, the origin of life, and those kinds of things. So these are some topics you can address. And I might just mention that if you also would like to see more of Steve Meyer, when I teach on the creation evolution controversy, oftentimes in Bible schools, I will find myself quoting him or showing clips of him from Icons of Evolution, Mystery of Life, Darwin's Dilemma, many of the Illustria media. So those videos are available. A lot of them are available on YouTube as well. So they're just a great way in which you can educate yourself or even educate your Sunday school class about some of these issues. So when we come back, class in session, and we'll have a chance to hear from Dr. Stephen Meyer. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kerby Anderson.
One thing the government shutdown has done is to remind us how big government is today and how many government employees there are. When just a quarter of the government shuts down and thousands of non-essential employees are sent home, you realize how large the federal government has grown. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to interview Senator Jim DeMint about his book that warned how the bigs were taking away our liberty. Those would be big government, big business, and big labor. Let's look at the federal government. The federal budget last year was $4 trillion. The president and Congress are supposed to manage a bureaucracy with more than 4.8 million employees if you count military, civilian, and contract employees. No one in history has ever managed such a large organization. Yes, the current president has managed a large company, but it pales in comparison to these numbers. And remember that the previous president had really never managed anything and whose previous experience was as a junior senator. To put this in comparison, let's look at the two largest companies in the Fortune 500. Walmart employs 2.1 million people worldwide, and about 1.4 million of them are in the United States. Its annual revenue is $482 billion. Amazon employs just 500,000 people worldwide with annual revenue about $177 billion. If Walmart or Amazon were part of the federal government, they wouldn't even be the largest federal programs. Perhaps the difference in scale between the federal government and the major U.S. corporations helps illustrate why so many people believe it is too big and too inefficient. When we see non-essential federal employees sent home, you can't blame some of us for wondering whether some of them should stay home permanently. I'm Kerby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kerby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Dr. Stephen Meyer with us today. And by the way, if you'd like to know more about him, you can go to our website, pointofview.net. Click on his picture. It has his whole bio and all the connections to the Discovery Institute. Also, if you scroll down, you'll also see we have information about the Dallas Conference on Science and Faith. Or you can simply go to discovery.org and then go to the events section. But we've made it very easy for you, first of all, to find out about it. It's taking place January 18th and 19th. We'll give you some more details about that in just a minute. Of course, Dr. Stephen Meyer is one of the speakers, as well as Dr. Jay Richards, Dr. James Tour, and Eric Metaxas. Going to be a outstanding event, and I certainly hope that you will attend it. If you cannot, we'll talk a little bit later about how you can at least get some of the information about it after it takes place. But I would encourage you right now to make a point of going to that conference, and we want to give you enough advance notice so that if you're not in the Dallas area and would like to attend the conference, we've still given you enough time to get on a car and drive over here or get on an airplane and fly here. So again, lots of great resources. But I thought, Stephen Meyer, for just a minute, we'd revisit a topic that is important, and that is in your signature in the cell in particular. We recognize and have for years said that, randomness does not give to order and information. But you now have a lot more information about that because we recognize that, let's just use a computer code for just a minute. The bits and bytes have to be in the right order with the right specificity, or you don't get any computer program working. Well, that's almost child's play compared to the incredible amount of information that is packed into the human cell. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. Our local hero up here in Redmond, Washington, Bill Gates, says that DNA is like a computer program, only much more complex than any we've ever devised or created. And that was really the big discovery of what's now called the molecular biological revolution in the 1950s and 60s. It started with Watson and Crick when they elucidated the structure of the DNA molecule. And then a few years after that initial publication in 1953 by Watson and Crick, Crick himself came out with another idea he called the sequence hypothesis, in which he posited that the individual subunits of the DNA molecule that run along the inside of that famed double helix, and these subunits are called nucleotide bases. He postulated that these are functioning just like alphabetic characters in a written language, or the zeros and ones in software code. And in fact, after about 5 to 7 years, his hypothesis was confirmed, and since the mid-60s, we've recognized that DNA is essentially a molecule that contains information in a digital or alphabetic form that encodes for the building of the proteins and protein machines that cells need to stay alive. So a tight analogy would be to what's called CAD/CAM, computer-assisted design and engineering, which we use in manufacturing in lots of different industries. Up here at the Boeing plant, for example, an engineer will sit at a console, write some code, it will go down a wire, it will be translated into another form of code that can be read by a machine, manufacturing apparatus, and then that machine will place, for example, rivets on an airplane in exact specifications on the wing in accord with the specifications of the original engineer. So we have digital code directing the construction of a mechanical system, and that's what's going on inside cells. You have this beautiful code in the DNA, it's translated into the RNA code language, and then that RNA information is used to transcribe and to build the proteins and nanomachinery made of proteins that keep cells alive. It's an absolutely fascinating process, exquisite form of informational complexity at the foundation of life. So in the 19th century, scientists thought that living cells were simple, homogeneous globules of plasm. That's a quote from Thomas Henry Huxley, one of Darwin's contemporaries. Yes. And we now know instead that we have an exquisite form of nanotechnology that is informationally based right at the foundation of life. Every living cell, even in the simplest organisms, has this exquisite information processing system at work, and we all depend on it. And it, by Bill Gates' observation, suggests most naturally a master programmer, because we know that information arises from an intelligent source. That's what we know from our uniform and repeated experience, the foundation of all scientific reasoning.
You know, and one of the things you just said in passing is from Michael Behe, because he talks about Darwin's black box. His most recent book, which you have on the website there, is Darwin Devolves. But, you know, the idea of the black box is that back in the 19th century, and let's give Charles Darwin his due, you know, all they had back then was a light microscope. And anybody that's ever had a high school biology class, and you look down there, you see a paramecium or an amoeba, it looks like a bag of goo, you know, it's called protoplasm. And so in some respects, it looked pretty simple. Now, with electron microscopes, we can open up that black box and recognize that the cell, just the simplest living cell, is much more complex than Darwin would have ever imagined. And so as you have people now saying, well, you should actually, now that we know more about science, believe in evolution, it seems just the opposite. Now, the more we know about science, the more we recognize the incredible challenges to evolution. True?
Absolutely. And beyond just the challenge to undirected processes of evolution as the explanation for this type of integrated and informational complexity, instead what we are finding are hallmarks of design. Things that we know from our uniform and repeated experience are always produced by intelligent agents. And the first and best example of that is precisely the digital code stored in the DNA molecule. And that's what my book, Signature in the Cell, was mainly about. But Behe has also, I think, made a compelling case for the the integrated or irreducible complexity of these nanomachines we're finding inside living cells on a tiny, tiny miniaturized scale. Rotary engines, lighting clamps, little turbines, exquisite forms of systems that look obviously engineered. In fact, I remember, when I went off to grad school, my dad was an engineer his whole career, and I left a really good job in his opinion. Geophysics, that made sense to him, but then I was going to do the philosophy of science. He couldn't understand what on earth that was. When I got back from grad school, we were having a talk, and he had been in the hospital for a while, laid up from a skiing injury, and I showed him some of the still images that we had produced, the animator had produced of these little miniature machines that Behe's book was about. And he had been a mechanical engineer his whole life, and when he saw them, he said, he says, I get it. He's been a big proponent of intelligent design ever since. So,
a stator and a rotor and all those kinds of things that look just like an engineering. Just before we take a break, there's something that's been kind of a breakthrough more recently that kind of ties this book into the other book, Darwin's Doubt, and that is we're starting to now find out how many changes at the molecular level would have to take place for you to even get a new species or to get this Cambrian explosion of life. And some of that's just come down in the last couple of years, in which we're recognizing that if indeed you believe in evolution, there's just not enough time and not enough molecular change necessary to give us the diversity of life that we have on the planet.
Yeah, absolutely. The information problem isn't just about the origin of the first cell. Anytime you build anything new in life, you have to provide, or the evolutionary process would presumably have to provide lots of new information. This is one of the big insights. It takes new information to build new form, and that the informational requirements can now be quantified. In fact, you can use Darwinian what are called population genetic models to do that quantification. And it turns out that the Darwinian mathematical formalism that's part of what's called modern neo-Darwinian synthesis, the math of neo-Darwinism itself shows that there isn't enough time to accomplish the transitions when we find these major new forms of life arising in the fossil records. So we actually have a mathematical biologist from the University of Stockholm working with a leading paleontologist who was until recently at the Stuttgart Museum of Natural History in Germany, and we are mathematizing the fossil record to quantify how much evolutionary change can take place, and also showing that with the major transitions, you simply don't have enough time to generate the amount of changes that would be necessary to build those new forms of animal life. So not enough time to generate the information necessary to build the fundamentally new forms that arise in the history of life as we see them documented in the fossil record.
Going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Dallas Conference on Science and Faith, in case you didn't have a chance to hear about that earlier. And before it's through, this is something that I would love to chat about for just a minute, because it's something they're talking about more and more, the human zoos. If you're not familiar with the fact that we used to put human beings, African Americans I might mention, in the zoo as so-called missing links, it I think just shows you the sad legacy sometimes of this Darwinian viewpoint. So there's a lot more to cover. Some of it will be scientific, some of it will be philosophical, but all of it I think will certainly be relevant so that you'll know more about this whole discussion about intelligent design. All that coming up right after this.
Here's some great news. If you missed the deadline to sign up for health insurance, or more importantly, if you sign up for a plan that you're just not happy with, you still have a choice. It's called MediShare, and MediShare is a Christian healthcare sharing program. It's been around for 25 years. They have more than 400,000 members now around the country. And get this, over the years, MediShare members have shared more than $2 billion of each other's medical bills, so they could help share your needs too. And best of all, you could save a lot of money with MediShare. The typical savings for a family is around $500 a month. Your savings could be more or less, but think about what you could do with that extra money every month. So if you think you're stuck with a high-cost health plan that doesn't have much to offer, think again. You can join MediShare anytime, so call them today and check it out. There's no pressure. They're super easy to talk to. 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
It takes a team to win. Be part of Point of View's Truth Team and bring truth and healing to America. Go to pointofview.net/team, pointofview.net/team, and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is Kerby Anderson.
Dr. Stephen Meyer with us. And by the way, if you'd like to join the conversation, 1-800-351-1212. You are certainly free to ask a question. I think on these kinds of programs, a lot of you just like to sit back, listen. Some of you want to take some notes or go to the websites, and that is fine. But if you'd like to join the conversation and talk about intelligent design, 1-800-351-1212. Stephen Meyer with us, and he is one of the speakers, along with Dr. Jay Richards, who's been on the program with us, Eric Metaxas, who's been on many times with us, as well as Dr. James Tour, professor of chemistry at Rice University, will be part of the Dallas conference, which will be taking place Friday evening, January 18th, and Saturday, January 19th, and we'll give you some more information about that. We have a link to that on the website, or you can simply go to the Dallas Conference on Science and Faith, or you can certainly go to discovery.org. And for people that would like to help promote that, let me also mention we have the video there. It's about a minute long, and it is really well done, so you can take that video, watch it, and then take a moment to maybe pass it on to others, raising questions about whether science and religion are in conflict, or questions about whether or not we have evidence for intelligence and whether the universe is a result of chance or randomness and those kinds of things. So all of it is available at our website, pointofview.net. And so again, let me encourage you to do what you can to register for the conference, or maybe to educate some others and encourage them to attend as well. Let me come back to this idea of Darwin's doubt. When you read through The Origin of Species, and I've dipped into it from time to time, but it's long and tedious, you can recognize, Dr. Stephen Meyer, that one of the things that bothered Darwin perhaps the most was he expected the fossil record to re-emphasize and confirm his view that you go from the simplest living cell that then differentiates into a variety of other multicelled organisms, and then these differentiate again, and through mutation, of course he didn't know what that was, but certainly natural selection, we would eventually get the diversity of life. Yet, when you look at the so-called Cambrian explosion in the Precambrian sediments, just don't have a whole lot, and all of a sudden, boom, you have almost all of life showing up that relates to the kind of challenge that evolution would face to get that kind of diversity in such a short period of time. But of course, you have devoted an entire book on what you call Darwin's doubt, the explosive origin of animal life, and the fact that that really is the case for intelligent design, isn't it?
Right. Well, Darwin conceived of the history of life, or portrayed it as a great branching tree in which, as you just described, the very simplest forms of life would gradually morph and change to produce all the more complex forms that we have on the planet today. But in contradiction to that picture, already in the 19th century, he and other earth scientists and paleontologists knew that the first animal forms arose very abruptly in a period that was then called the Silurian and now called the Cambrian. And this Cambrian explosion, so-called, has stood for over 150 years as a major challenge to the Darwinian picture of the history of life. And in the book, Darwin's Doubt, I describe that as the mystery of the missing fossils. Where are those ancestral forms below the first Cambrian animals that would link the Cambrian animals back to the simplest one-celled forms of organisms? The problem is that after 150 years of looking, those gaps or discontinuities are not less pronounced, but in fact more pronounced than they were in Darwin's time. So that's one mystery. But the other mystery that the abrupt appearance of new animal life brings to us is the mystery of how you would build all that new form.
Right.
Because it's not just a matter of the gaps in the fossil record. It's what is the cause or the mechanism that would produce all these new intricate and complex forms of life. And that goes back to that informational mystery that we were talking about in the last segment. We now know that in order to build any new form of animal life, you need lots of new kinds of tissues, and those tissues require new types of cells. Those new types of cells require new dedicated proteins. If you have a gut, for example, you need digestive enzymes. If you have exoskeletons, you need particular types of proteins to service those cells. So new forms of life require new tissues, new cell types, new proteins, and that gets you back to the need for new information encoded in DNA. So when you see these abrupt jumps in the fossil record documenting new forms of life arising, those are actually not just gaps in the fossil record, they are evidence of infusions of new code. And the question is, where does that code come from? And back to what we were saying in the last segment, the only known cause of large discontinuous increases in the amount of information in a system that we know of, the only known cause of such information is intelligence. It's mind. So we think that these major discontinuities in the fossil record are actually attesting to the role of a designing intelligence.
Well, and again, one of the things that you try to do in all of your books, but I'll just use Darwin's Doubt as an example, is that you then take them down, if you will, I'll use the metaphor of a hallway, and they say, oh, I know, it's maybe because the fossil record was imperfect. Of course, that was Darwin's example. And so you take them and you open up that door and you then show that there's no evidence there. And so you close that door and kind of lock it down. Then you go to another door that says, well, maybe there, and you start taking them through all of the possible explanations that possibly can happen. Or maybe that there was a longer period of evolution that wasn't showing up, and then you begin to answer those questions, and then you start taking them through some of the biochemistry. So part of the goal that you have there is to not only make the assertion, but then to look at every possible explanation that some of the brightest minds in evolution have tried to come up with, and show that those don't give us answers either, do they?
That's a great metaphor. I think I'm going to use that in the future, the hallway, because my books are written at a level that educated lay people can absolutely understand them, and I try to explain the science that's necessary to understand the arguments so that people put the first rung on the ladder so that everybody can climb to the top. But they are very thorough, and I have had an enlightened editor at Harper One, my publisher, who realized that people like me making the case for intelligent design bear a big burden of proof, so he's allowed them to run longer than the average trade book, so we can deal with all those counter-arguments. And I also use a method of reasoning known as inference to the best explanation. It's a standard method of reasoning in the historical sciences. But to make the case that your explanation is best, you have to look at the alternative. So that's kind of the MO of the books, but I like the hallway metaphor. I think I'll use that.
Well, and it is, if you've ever been in a science classroom, and you have, and I have as well, sometimes they'll take you into a room and they'll do an experiment there, and it's kind of like you've opened the door, you show, okay, this was the explanation. Does it make any sense? No? Okay, let's close that door. And
let's try something else.
Yeah, let's lock that door, because there's no reason going back into that door again, because we just knocked that one off of its shelf, and it doesn't have any explanation. So I thought that would be kind of a way to help people understand the way in which you kind of go about this, and the reason why it takes a while to answer some of those questions. And if nothing else, I just thought it would be helpful for people to kind of think how that is done. And I might just mention that as they go to discovery.org, they're going to see a lot more than just your books. Michael Denton, for example, has The Children of Light, and he's gotten us thinking about things about fire and light and all of the rest. But when I come back from the break, I do want to take on one of those, and that is the idea of human zoos, actually probably better titled Inhumane Zoos. And I know that this is available as well, and it's something which I think really is shocking to individuals. Now, we have talked about this on the program before. Dr. Raymond Boland, who's, again, my colleague, has been on this program talking about some of the Darwin's racist and how the idea, even though Charles Darwin was certainly an abolitionist and an English gentleman, he unleashed this idea of survival of the fittest, of a superior race, favored races, those kinds of things that led to everything from eugenics to even the idea that if you go back in history at the Bronx Zoo, they actually put human beings in there. Now, they were African Americans, of course, as missing links. And I want to come back and talk about this because this particular DVD or Blu-ray, or of course you can also watch it on Amazon Prime, is shocking to a lot of people. And at a time when we're having a conversation about race and racism and some of those things, Wanted you to know about that. Available also on the website, which is Discovery Institute. You can simply go to their website, discovery.org. Of course, you can go to our website, pointofview.net. And most importantly, I hope that you'll take the time to check out this Dallas Conference on Science and Faith, taking place January 18th and 19th at Park Cities Baptist Church. If you don't live in Dallas, I would encourage you to figure out a way to get here by then. And if you live here, all you need to do is sign up. So there's just some great resources. But I want to talk a little bit about human zoos. It'll shock you, and we'll come back with that right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. Drug testing of employees is always a source of frustration. Nonetheless, it is essential to safety in the workplace. But does drug testing ever threaten an employee's religious liberty? J.B. Hunt Transport recently found itself facing that very question along with lawyers at the EEOC and the Sikh Coalition. Hunt Transport randomly tests its employees for drug use by using a hair sample. That works in most cases, but not for Sikh employees. Sikhism requires its followers to neither shave nor cut their hair. The simple act of plucking a hair from their head would cause Sikhs to violate their religious beliefs. Sikh applicants to the trucking company explained their predicament, but the company denied the request for an alternative drug testing option. Ultimately, they were not hired, and the employees sued, alleging religious discrimination. Wisely, the company agreed to settle the matter. Employers cannot make employment decisions based upon an employee's religion. Further, companies have a duty to accommodate an employee's religion so long as that can be done without undue hardship to the organization. In this case, refusing to hire someone because they would not cut their hair for a drug test is unreasonable when multiple alternative tests are at the company's disposal. Freedom, and especially religious freedom, demands that we do the hard work of balancing corporate safety against individual liberty. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
I'm Kelly Shackelford, President and Chief Counsel of First Liberty Institute. Let me ask you, what if America's best attorneys from the very top law firms got together to defend religious freedom in court? That's exactly what's happening at First Liberty. And the best news? We're winning over 90% of our legal actions. Come learn more at firstliberty.org. You'll be encouraged. That's firstliberty.org.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Dr. Stephen Meyer with us for a few more minutes as we talk about, again, this Dallas Conference on Science and Faith. And, Steve, it probably would be good to mention that one of the reasons you also want to do this is not only to educate people about intelligent design, but to talk about the fact that if you don't really give good answers to young people, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons young people give up on their Christian faith when they go off to college is they're confronted by all this scientific evidence which seems to contradict their faith. And so I think this would be a great conference, not only for adults to attend, but for young people to attend and for them to see that there's a lot of evidence for intelligent design.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the we've done some polling, and one of the top two of the top three answers that young people give when they explain why they have walked away from faith is either no scientific evidence for God or the theory of evolution, and we'll be addressing both of those things. In fact, one of the questions that I get asked a lot and have been asked a lot as the result of the publication of my first two books is, okay, you made a case for intelligent design, but who do you think the designer is? And in the books on biology, I argue that the case for intelligent design has theistic implications, but I acknowledge that you might, conceivably attribute the designing intelligence responsible for life to something other than God. And the reason for that is that there's a time lag between the beginning of the universe and the first life. Maybe some have argued maybe it was an immanent intelligence somewhere within the cosmos that was responsible. What I do, I'm writing another book called The Return of the God Hypothesis, and I'll be interviewed about that by Eric Metaxas on the first night of the conference. And there I'm showing that if we bring into the equation the physics and the cosmology, the evidence of fine-tuning from the very beginning of the universe, and the fact that the universe has a beginning, as we've been able to establish from cosmology and astronomy, then I think you can make a very strong case for theistic design, the idea that God is the designer, not just a sort of generic designing intelligence. So in my own work, I'm pushing the argument for intelligent design further to a metaphysical conclusion that is theistic. I believe that God is the best explanation of the ensemble of evidences we have from biology, physics, and cosmology. And we'll be discussing that at the conference, first in the opening interview, but also then throughout the day. I'll be talking about some of the cosmological discoveries. Jay Richards will be talking about some of the discoveries in physics, and then Jim Tour about the origin of life. So we'll be addressing this very specific reason that college students often offer for walking away from the faith, and that is that there's no scientific evidence for God. We think there is, and we want to present that.
Well, again, if you believe in cause and effect, and that seems to be kind of a universal principle, the cause has to be larger than the effect. And if indeed you believe that even a Big Bang created both space and time, then the origin of that, the creator of that, has to be outside of space and time. And in Genesis 1, I can only see one possible category that fits into that. So, again, this will be fascinating to hear you talk about that. And, again, I look forward to hearing not only you, but Jay Richards, who I think has done a great job, of course, in Privileged Planet. But just before we go, I think I would at least mention this Human Zoos movie because people are unaware of the fact that there were literally thousands of indigenous people that were put on public display, including one individual, Otto Benga, that was actually on display in a zoo in New York. Now, I don't lay all of the blame at the feet of Charles Darwin, but you got to recognize that the title of his book was not just The Origin of Species. It was on the origin of species by means of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. And so maybe not so much Darwin, but the followers of Darwin began to say, well, certain races are more favored than others. And you actually had people put on display in zoos that were either Aborigines or Africans that were seen as missing links. And that's a part of our history that has been expunged. And I'm so grateful that Discovery Institute said, no, that's part of our history. And some of it comes from this idea of Darwinism.
Yeah, absolutely. It's alas, a sad chapter in the history of ideas, but it shows that ideas have consequences. And, Darwin did apply this notion of gradual evolution to the human races as well in his second book, The Descent of Man. So he's not entirely lacking culpability in this. It was, but in particular, his German advocates, Ernst Haeckel and others, picked this up and ran with it, and it ended up having quite a significant impact on the formation of National Socialism. In a previous film, John West, my associate director and one of our senior fellows, is also the film producer for this movie, Human Zoos. He also did an excellent film called The Biology of the Second Reich, showing that these racist ideas had already penetrated the German elites by the time of the First World War, and it was one of the reasons that people weren't more aghast at the horrible carnage at the front, because many of the elite intellectuals and people in the military thought that this was a way of purifying the races, having this kind of struggle for survival. So Darwinian ideas have had a fairly malignant effect culturally. And that isn't to say that they're wrong scientifically. We critique them scientifically on entirely separate grounds, but I think it's important to understand the connection between ideas. And John West's two films, Human Zoos and The Biology of the Second Reich, do an excellent job of that, and both are award-winning at several film festivals. So they're short, about 14, 15 minutes each, but they're very informative, and I do recommend them.
Well, again, we have links on that to the website as well, but the most important link that we wanted to talk about today is, again, this Dallas Conference on Science and Faith takes place at Park Cities Baptist Church. If you can't attend, we'll let you know a little bit later how you can find out some of the information that was shared there, and I can't wait till Stephen Meyer's book comes out, then we'll do the interview right here on the program and learn a little bit more about the God hypothesis, and, of course, always look forward to hearing from people like Jay Richards and Eric Metaxas and others who will be speaking at the conference, and introducing to you James Tour, who I think very highly of as well. So just some great resources, all available at our website, pointofview.net, or you can go directly to discovery.org. Stephen Meyer's always fun to have you on the program, so thank you for joining us today here on Point of View.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on and giving the conference a push. It's going to be really exciting.
Looking forward to it. Well, that's all we have for today. As we wind it down, let me just real quickly talk about some of the resources that we have posted on the website here for you today. You can go to pointofview.net and find out some of the material that we have talked about over the last couple of hours, so that is certainly going to be helpful to you. And as you go to the website, I hope that you will also maybe consider watching this again or listening. You might have wanted to pick up a couple of great pieces of information there. Of course, my Viewpoints commentary is there as well, and so I hope that if you aren't already receiving it on your inbox, you click on that red button that says sign up. That will be helpful as well. And most importantly, I would at least like to mention again that we're going to be having a trip to Israel, and that will be taking place in October. So you might say, well, I'll get to it back then. We've had such an incredible response just even over the last couple of days, and because of the fact that we're only going to be on 2 buses, I would have to say that if you really do want to participate with us in October, first of all, you probably need to go to the website, click on that button that says Take Action, go to Israel with Kerby Anderson, and find out a little bit more, and then at least put your deposit down so you can say, hey, save a spot on the bus and in the hotel rooms for us, because we will be going to both Israel and to Rome. You can go just to Israel or Israel and Rome, so I'll let you make that choice. But again, those are resources that are available on the website. And as we go to the website, don't forget that as we are in the midst of our new year, we certainly do still need your financial support. So if you can help us out, click on that button that says donate, and that's a way in which you can support this ministry. We would greatly appreciate it. And as we start this new year, I hope some of you might really consider joining with us on the Truth Team for as little as $1 a day, $30 a month, $360 a year. You can come in at that level or even at higher levels, and there's some tremendous benefits to you in supporting this ministry. I want to thank all that have been a part of the broadcast here today. I want to thank Doug and Steve for the help behind the scenes. Look forward to our conversation. We'll see you back here tomorrow right here on Point of View.
Here's some great news. If you missed the deadline to sign up for health insurance, or more importantly, if you sign up for a plan that you're just not happy with, you still have a choice. It's called MediShare, and MediShare is a Christian healthcare sharing program. It's been around for 25 years. They have more than 400,000 members now around the country. And get this, over the years, MediShare members have shared more than $2 billion of each other's medical bills, so they could help share your needs too. And best of all, you could save a lot of money with MediShare. The typical savings for a family is around $500 a month. Your savings could be more or less, but think about what you could do with that extra money every month. So if you think you're stuck with a high-cost health plan that doesn't have much to offer, think again. You can join MediShare anytime, so call them today and check it out. There's no pressure. They're super easy to talk to. 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
It takes a team to win. Be part of Point of View's Truth Team and bring truth and healing to America. Go to pointofview.net/team, pointofview.net/team, and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.